We are looking at a new reality. Well, not so fast. We are looking at a situation in Jamaica. The election went through. It looked as though the Prime Minister's party, they lost it. It looked as though Mr. Holness's party was there, but everything is kind of holding up right now. Give us clarity as to what is happening on the ground, please, right after the polls were closed.
Well, what has happened is that after the election, the first count, the preliminary count, on Thursday night, the GOP eked out an extremely close victory, as was thought by a lot of us, and as indicated by the last poll to be published, an RJR Communications Group poll by Dan Anderson, that showed that the People's National Party's lead in January had whittled from 4.3 percentage points, which would have been just 1.3 percentage points outside of the margin of error of Dan Anderson's poll, and he's always accurate, of plus or minus 3%. And that lead whittled down to 2.8%, as the GOP picked up 1.5 percentage points between January and when that poll was published 2 weeks ago. So the fact is that it was a statistical dead heat. We're inside the margin of error, plus or minus 3, it can go either way. And it did go the way of the GOP, as they won 3 more seats in the 63-seat parliament here. So the preliminary count was 33 to 30 in favor of the GOP. Remember that the PNP had won a landslide victory in 2011, winning 42 of those seats to the GOP's 21. In Jamaica, there is an automatic recount by the Electoral Office of Jamaica. That count started on Friday, and up to last night, 21 of the 63 seats have been completed in that recount. And what has happened is that the seat in St. Mary Southeast that was declared for the GOP's Dr. Norman Dunn over the sitting Member of Parliament, Dr. Winston Green, was reversed. That seat was won by Dr. Dunn with a margin of, I think, 121 votes. What had happened is on the recount, my understanding is that there were 75 ballots that were wrongly attributed to Dr. Dunn, that were awarded to Dr. Winston Green of the People's National Party. And through the usual process of rejections and support ballots, etc., allocation and reallocation, Dr. Green of the PNP managed to overturn a 121 count deficit in the initial count, where he lost on Thursday, to winning that seat by a razor-thin 9 votes. I am sure that the GOP will now invoke the magisterial recount, which when the Electoral Office of Jamaica completes all the 63 seats in the recount, which should be completed by tomorrow, the Director of Elections, Art Fisher, has promised, then the candidates can decide if they want a recount in the courts, the magisterial recount, and they have 2 weeks to get that done. So that's where we are right now, 33 to 30 for the GOP on Thursday night. But as of today, waking up on Sunday, it's 32 to the GOP, 31 to the outgoing ruling party of the PNP, and you can't get any more razor thin than that. So that is the reality at the moment.
There is the question always, well, there is nothing we can do until the recount is complete, and then we may have, as you say, the court ordered or requested recount to go even further. But there is...
You could also have the PNP picking up another seat or two. That you can't rule out that possibility. There are 2 seats that are very close at the moment, as was the one between Dr. Green of the PNP and Dr. Dunn of the GOP, that are sparking tremendous interest. And so when those 2 seats, St. Catherine Northeast and St. Thomas Western, and those 2 seats when those 2 counts are completed, I think those 2 seats will give a clear indication as to whether the GOP will form the government or the PNP will. And then, of course, I'm sure you could have challenges in the courts.
Well, precisely. That's what I'm saying. It could be for a little while, because should the PNP, as you say, happen to get the additional seats, then the GLP is going to say, hey, let's go back to count this again. Okay, so this is something
Absolutely.
we have no choice but to wait on. RJR's Patrick Addison is my guest here this morning. We're talking about the just concluded elections in Jamaica. The decision is still out there. There is the question, however, Patrick, what happened? Because a lot of folks thought the PNP had this one. They thought so because of the way in which they have worked with the IMF. They thought so because they were optimistic that the country was on a footing heading out of the dire situation it is right now. What happened to that enthusiasm, that zealousness we heard about that brought the JLP this close?
There are two issues, Rennie. The people were torn. Yes, as you pointed out correctly, and as has been acknowledged by many, including folks from the Jamaica Labour Party. They may not say so openly, but international recognition. The Jamaica Stock Exchange was voted the #1 stock exchange in the world. Mm-hmm. International organizations pointed to the work of Peter Phillips, the outgoing Minister of Finance. That stands up the work that he has done with the economy and particularly the IMF to bring the country to the position that it is, recognized, respected. Money's being opened up again by the international bilateral and multilateral institutions. And the respect that the country has regained, particularly since the Christopher Cole saga back in 2010, which created, made Jamaica an international pariah, and also the collapse of the deal with the IMF under the then government of Bruce Golding. So what happened? The people became torn, Rennie. Yes, the PNP government had done a lot with the economy and worked spectacularly well with the IMF, but the people, they just got tired of the austerity measures. Mm-hmm. So the choice was, do I continue with these austerity measures, although it is heading in the right direction, or do I try to ease my own austerity burden? Because remember, under the GLP, under the IMF, under the PNP, for almost a decade now, the public sector workers, the country, we have been going through an austere measures, particularly the public sector workers, and they're not particularly well paid. Salary freeze of 2, 3, 4 years because of the IMF programs. And so whilst the inflation has been kept down under the PNP, there's still been inflation. Things that the price of goods and services have risen and the salaries have not. Mm-hmm. And then here comes the shot that hit the ball out of the park for 6 by Andrew Holness. The proposal of a $1.5 million salary or less, paying no income tax, resonated with those public sector workers mm-hmm. and the country. He has proposed the tax threshold at the moment is $440,000 for those who, or $660,000 to pay no personal income tax. So Andrew Holness has proposed to raise that to $1.5 million. So you earn up to $1.5 million and you pay no personal income tax, so that there will be some savings in your hand on payday each month. And that resonated. It resonated also, and the People's National Party did not spend any time saying why they think it couldn't work. They spent an inordinate amount of time attacking Andrew Holness on the construction of his mansion. And there was a poll that was conducted, and the result came out in December, January, that the public did not care about that issue. So while the PNP were hammering home about Andrew Holness' home and that he should show where he's getting the money from to build his house, Holness was proposing a tax plan that it resonated with the people under the austere conditions. So I think those were the two key things. The people were torn. Yes, the government, the PNP, they were doing what they were supposed to do to bring back the economy and rescue the economy and bring it out of its debt, etc. But the austere conditions wore the people down, and they were torn, and they made that choice.
It turned out to be a very close thing. There are comparisons made. For one, being the female prime minister, Trinidad and Tobago, as you know, just lost its female prime minister, and some of the comparisons I have heard, and you can dispel them immediately. Hence the reason I ask you the question. One was this feeling of maximum leader and too much being centered on the prime minister. Was that the case here at all?
No, the issue, that perhaps you could say that was the case in the 2007 general elections when Portia Simpson Miller ascended to the position of the first female prime minister in Jamaica. That would have been on February 25 in 2006, and the former prime minister, P.J. Patterson, stepped down. She had the internal contest with Dr. Peter Phillips, and she won in 2006. And she called the election in 2007, lost to Bruce Golding, a razor-thin majority again. So she has called two elections that she has lost. She lost an election 32-28. That campaign was very Portia Simpson focused. It was all about her. On the campaign trail, it was I. It was just about her. She lost that election. Andrones made that same error, incidentally, in 2011. He was prime minister for 2 to 3 months, and it was all about him. I, and he lost. Neither Hones nor Simpson Miller had the election focused on them. Of course, they were the leaders of their party on the campaign trail. You know how that is, and that you go around and try to help candidates in the various constituencies to show up support. But no, I wouldn't say that this campaign by either party leader, that it was absolutely focused on them. The GLP presented a lot of proposals and issues. The PNP was trumpeting its own success with the economy. They got distracted in the last 3 weeks. The general thought here is that the People's National Party had this election won 3 weeks ago. They lost the plot when they switched and started to focus and hammer home about Andrew Hones' home. At the same time, in Hones, about 3 weeks ago, announced a 10-point plan for the economy. But the main plank for them was this $1.5 million new tax threshold that resonated with the workers. The thought is that Dr. Peter Phillips, the Minister of Finance, was the best person to talk about the successes of the PNP with its IMF and economic program. It was Dr. Peter Phillips who was leading this charge rather than talking about his successes with the IMF and the economy, was the one who was leading this charge about Andrew Hones' home. And I think that also peed off a lot of voters, because the GLP made that error in 2011. They went negative and personally against Portia Simpson Miller. The voting public didn't like that. And the voting public did not like the fact that they went negative and nasty against Andrew Hones here either.
Patrick Anderson, broadcaster RJR Radio in Jamaica. We're talking about the elections just concluded in Jamaica, where we are not too clear as to who is forming the next government. Part of the comparisons I mentioned, one of them also is the question of the decision not to take part in the debates. Now, as you yourself articulated a moment ago, many folks 3 weeks ago said it is the PNP's election to lose. Folks felt that the debate would have offered an opportunity to reinforce the positive strides they have made, and not participating in that did the PNP a disservice to the advantage of the JLP. Speak to that, please.
Absolutely, and it backfired, and that is another of the major reasons that they lost. People wanted that debate. People wanted to hear it. They were criticizing, as you would expect, Hones' tax proposal of that $1.5 million threshold. If you earn $1.5 million and less, you are not paying a personal income tax. And the country were denied the opportunity to hear the reasons why the PNP thought it could not work. The PNP was saying that it punched $32 billion hole in the budget. The JLP said no, it would be $12 billion. You also heard the figure of $15 billion. So there was a discrepancy in the deficit that it would create. The JLP quickly said, hey, yes, they admitted after 3 or 4 days it is going to cost us about $15 billion. The PNP said $32 billion, but Hones also said we will recover that money by getting more taxes from those who earn over $5 million. So those were the proposals on the table by the GOP. The PNP did not, in any constructive, concerted way, attack those, and the country felt that a debate would have been the best thing. The country also felt that it was a disrespect to the public to not debate. This is something that happens once every 5 years.